Somewhere in the mountains of southwestern Iran, an American pilot is hiding right now. Not flying, not fighting, hiding, crouched in a ravine or pressed against a rock face in the dark, listening for Iranian IRGC patrols that are actively hunting him, listening for the sound of boots, listening for drones overhead, knowing that every Iranian in the surrounding area has been offered a bounty for his capture, knowing that if they find him before American Special Forces do, he will not be coming home the same person he left as, and the mainstream media is covering this story the way they cover everything in this war, with numbers, with briefings, with Pentagon statements carefully worded to minimize alarm. 2 aircraft lost, search and rescue ongoing, operations continuing as planned. I am Michael Turner, and what I am going to tell you right now is what those briefings are deliberately leaving out. Iran just shot down 2 American combat jets in a single day, an F-15E Strike Eagle, one of the most advanced fighter aircraft in the United States military, and an A-10 Thunderbolt, the legendary Warthog, a ground attack aircraft so heavily armored it has survived direct missile hits before. Both gone in less than 24 hours over Iranian territory, while the Pentagon and the White House had been telling the American public for weeks that Iran's air defenses had been destroyed. They had not been destroyed, and 1 American pilot is still out there somewhere in Iran right now as you watch this video. And that story, that human story, that reality is what changes everything about this war. Let me take you inside what actually happened, because the official briefing and the real story are 2 very different things. The F-15E Strike Eagle is not a vulnerable aircraft. Let me be absolutely clear about that so you understand the full weight of what Iran just accomplished. The F-15 has been the backbone of American air superiority for decades. It can travel at twice the speed of sound. It has advanced radar warning systems that alert the crew when they are being tracked by enemy missiles. It has electronic countermeasures, flares, chaff, systems specifically designed to defeat surface-to-air missiles. It has operated over hostile airspace in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Libya for 20-plus years of warfare, and it almost never gets shot down. The aircraft has one of the best combat records of any fighter jet in history, and Iran shot one down. The F-15E was flying a mission over southwestern Iran when Iranian air defense systems acquired it, locked on, and fired. The crew, a pilot and a weapons systems officer, both ejected. Both ejection seats fired successfully. Both crew members were alive in Iranian airspace, floating down under parachutes over enemy territory at the start of what the Air Force calls the most time-sensitive and dangerous mission in all of warfare, personnel recovery. Getting them out before Iran gets to them first. A massive rescue operation was immediately launched. HC-130J Combat King aircraft coordinating the recovery effort, HH-60W Jolly Green rescue helicopters going in hot, armed MQ-9 drones providing overhead surveillance, an A-10 doing fire suppression of Iranian ground forces closing on the crash site, an F-35 flying top cover using its sensors to track threats in the area. The full weight of American Special Operations aviation thrown at this problem simultaneously. 1 crew member was located and extracted, alive, injured but stable, currently receiving treatment. The 2nd crew member has not been found, and that is where we are right now. American Special Forces are operating inside Iranian territory, in a hostile landscape of mountains and dry riverbeds, trying to find 1 person who is either hiding and evading successfully, or who has been captured, or who did not survive. And every hour that passes without confirmation of his location is an hour that Iran's forces are also searching, with local informants, with thermal drones, with ground patrols, with a bounty system that turns every Iranian civilian in the area into a potential enemy. The retired lieutenant colonel who spoke on the rescue this morning described the pilot situation in terms that made it concrete. The first rule is survive, find cover, find water, move only at night. avoid thermal detection. The pilot carries a survival radio, a locator beacon, a sidearm. His greatest weapon is stillness, is becoming invisible in a landscape that is actively being searched by people who want to capture him and parade him on Iranian state television as a trophy, because that is what Iran will do if they find him first, and they know it, and the pilot knows it. Now let me explain what is actually significant about how Iran shot these aircraft down, because this is the part of the story that the mainstream coverage is glossing over, and it is the most important part. For weeks, the American public has been told that Iran's air defense network has been effectively neutralized, that U.S. and Israeli strikes had destroyed Iran's radar systems, its missile batteries, its command and control infrastructure, that American pilots owned the skies over Iran, that the threat to U.S. aircraft was minimal, that pilots could operate with confidence. Fox News had retired military officers on television this morning, saying that across 13,000 combat missions, these two shootdowns represent a success rate for Iranians of 0.008%, technically accurate, framed to minimize alarm, and completely missing the point. The point is not the percentage. The point is that Iran preserved capabilities that the United States military assessed had been destroyed. That after weeks of the most intensive air campaign conducted by any military force in decades, Iran still has functional surface-to-air missile systems, still has radar, still has the ability to detect, track, and engage advanced American aircraft. How? Retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, a military analyst who spoke on this today, gave the clearest explanation I have heard. He said the Iranians appear to have used a strategy of deliberate concealment from the beginning of the war. Some air defense systems were exposed and used early, and American and Israeli forces destroyed them. But others were kept in hardened underground shelters, turned off, their radar signatures completely dark, waiting. And when American planners assessed that a given area of Iranian airspace had been cleared, when the assumption became that it was safe to operate there freely, the Iranians brought those hidden systems back online, and they fired. Davis used a word that every American should hear clearly: hubris. He said the assumption on the American side was that we had complete mastery of Iranian airspace, that what worked in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in 2 decades of operations against opponents with limited air defense capability would work against Iran too. And that assumption just cost the United States 2 aircraft and left 1 pilot unaccounted for in hostile territory. There is also a second explanation for how Iran achieved this, and it is arguably more alarming than the first. Davis and other analysts believe Iran may be using a different category of air defense system entirely: passive radar, infrared heat-seeking missiles that do not emit radar signals that American aircraft can detect and evade. Traditional radar warning systems on American jets work by detecting the radio frequency emissions of enemy radar. If the enemy radar is not emitting, if it is using infrared targeting instead, the warning system gives no warning. The first indication the pilot has that they are being targeted is when the missile is already in the air. Iran put out video recently showing an F-35, the most advanced stealth fighter in the American arsenal, in the crosshairs of their radar system. If that video is genuine, and American officials have not definitively dismissed it, then the implications extend far beyond the 2 aircraft we have already lost, because stealth aircraft are designed to be invisible to conventional radar. If Iran has developed or acquired passive infrared systems capable of tracking stealth aircraft, then the entire foundation of American air dominance in this conflict needs to be reassessed. This is not what the mainstream media is telling you. What they are telling you is 2 planes down, search ongoing, operations continuing. What I am telling you is that the fundamental assumption that American air power in this conflict faces minimal risk has just been proven wrong. And 1 American pilot is in the mountains of Iran right now as a direct consequence of that wrong assumption. Now, let me tell you what is happening in Tehran, because the contrast between what this looks like from inside America and what it looks like from inside Iran is striking and important. For weeks, Iranians have been living under relentless bombing. Over 2,000 killed, tens of thousands wounded, cities damaged, infrastructure destroyed. The Iranian population has been terrified, sheltering, suffering, and they have had no good news, no victories to point to, no evidence that their military can actually fight back against the most powerful air force in the world. And then yesterday happened. Iranians poured into the streets of Tehran, of Mashhad, of Isfahan. Not everyone, not in every neighborhood, but thousands, waving flags, honking horns, setting off fireworks, celebrating with an intensity that comes from weeks of suppressed fear, finally finding an outlet. Because for the first time since this war began, Iran proved it can hurt America, can make the superpower pay a price, can shoot down the planes that have been bombing Iranian cities and walking away without consequence. Iranian state television is running the story around the clock, showing wreckage from the F-15, interviewing military commanders, playing footage of the crash site on a loop. The message to the Iranian population is simple and it is effective. We are still fighting. We are not defenseless. America lied when it said our military was destroyed, and the pilot who has not been found yet is, in Iranian media framing, already described as a potential prisoner of war, a bargaining chip, a symbol. Iranian President Pezeshkian released a statement saying the downing of American warplanes proves that Iran's defenders are capable and that American claims about destroying Iran's military are propaganda. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi said Iran has preserved its critical defense systems and will continue defending its sovereignty for as long as necessary. And then Araghchi added one line that I want you to hear very carefully. He said, if the missing American pilot is found alive on Iranian territory, he will be treated in accordance with international law. Read that again. If he is found alive on Iranian territory. That language is deliberate. Araghchi is signaling that Iran is actively searching, that the Iranian side believes the pilot may still be alive somewhere in their territory, and that if Iran finds him first, he becomes a prisoner of war under Iranian custody. If that happens, this war changes shape completely. Because an American prisoner in Iranian hands is not a military problem. It is a political crisis of a different magnitude. Trump cannot declare victory with an American service member on Iranian television, cannot end the war with a family watching their son or husband in captivity, cannot move on. Every press conference becomes about the pilot. Every negotiation is shadowed by it. And Iran, which currently has no leverage in the formal negotiating process because the U.S. is simply demanding total surrender, suddenly has the most powerful kind of leverage there is. A human being, an American human being, in a flight suit. The historical precedent here matters, and it is not reassuring. In 1994, a U.S. Army pilot, Michael Durant, was captured in Somalia after his Black Hawk was shot down. He was held for 11 days. The images of him in captivity, visibly injured, were broadcast around the world. They changed American public opinion about the Somalia mission almost overnight. The administration was forced to change course. Iran is not Somalia. Iran is a country with sophisticated media capabilities, with a state television apparatus that has been doing propaganda for decades, and with a leadership that fully understands the psychological and political value of an American prisoner. If they have that pilot, they will use him. They will use him skillfully, and the American public, which has been told this war is almost over, will be watching something very different from what they were promised. Now let me address Trump's response, because the silence from the White House in the hours after this story broke is itself the story. Trump did not appear publicly after the shootdowns were confirmed, did not hold a press conference, did not tweet, did not make a statement. The White House released a brief written statement confirming that 2 aircraft were lost and that search and rescue operations were ongoing for 1 missing crew member. That is all. A few sentences. No acknowledgement that Iran has proven its air defenses are still functional. No explanation for why American pilots were flying over an area that was supposedly cleared. No address to the nation, no message to the pilot's family watching and waiting. The silence is not accidental. The silence is because there are no good answers to the questions that this situation raises. If Trump speaks publicly, reporters will ask him directly. You said Iran's air defenses were destroyed. How did they shoot down 2 aircraft? You said this war would be over in 2 to 3 weeks. Does this change that timeline? What is happening with the missing pilot? What is the plan if Iran has captured him? And Trump has no answers that do not contradict something he has already said publicly on the record. So he is saying nothing. And every hour of silence is another hour that the pilot's family is waiting. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth briefed congressional leaders in a classified session. Sources who attended told reporters that Hegseth admitted Iranian air defenses are more capable than initially assessed, that U.S. intelligence underestimated the number of systems Iran had preserved in hardened shelters, that future operations will require adjusted tactics and potentially different aircraft profiles. That is the sanitized Pentagon version of a simple truth. We were wrong. We told American pilots it was safer than it was, and now one of them is missing in the mountains of Iran. That intelligence failure has consequences beyond the 2 aircraft that were lost. Because if American pilots now know that the air defense threat is higher than they were told, that changes how they fly every mission. They fly higher to stay above the range of shorter range systems. But flying higher makes them more visible to longer-range radar-guided missiles. They avoid certain areas. But certain areas contain the highest value targets. Every adaptation to increased threat reduces effectiveness. And Iran, by proving it can still shoot down American planes, has made every future American air operation more cautious, more conservative, more costly in time and risk. The war did not get easier yesterday. It got harder. And I want to close by going back to where I started, because everything I have just told you, the geopolitics, the intelligence failures, the propaganda value, the negotiating leverage, all of it is real and all of it matters. But none of it is the most important thing about this story. The most important thing about this story is that right now, in the mountains of southwestern Iran, in the dark, in hostile territory surrounded by people who have been offered money to capture him, there is an American service member, someone's son, someone's husband, someone's father. A person who put on a flight suit and flew a mission because he was ordered to, because he trusted that the people ordering him believed the risk was acceptable, because that is what American service members do. And that person is waiting, is hiding, is hoping that the sound he hears next is an American helicopter and not Iranian boots. That is the reality of this war that Trump's briefings and Pentagon statements and Fox News panels with retired generals are not capturing. A real human being in a real situation of real danger, whose fate is still unknown. I am Michael Turner, and that is why I cover this war the way I cover it, because behind every number in every briefing, there is a person. And right now, that person is in Iran. Subscribe and turn on notifications right now, because the next update on the missing pilot will change the trajectory of this entire conflict. If he is rescued, Trump gets a story to tell. If Iran has him, everything changes. Tell me in the comments. Do you think the missing pilot will be rescued, or do you think Iran already has him? And what does it mean for this war if an American service member is paraded on Iranian state television? The search is ongoing. I will have the latest the moment it breaks. I will see you in the next update.